So welcome back to my Ask Matt series. It's been a while. My Ask Matt series is a series of videos that I did for a while where I answer questions and go into more detail on topics suggested by you, the viewers. It's been a while. We're getting back into it. We're doing a video on sealing up the ends of logs and boards for drying. So roll that intro. I'm just kidding. I don't have an intro or use one of those. So sealing up the ends of boards for drying. First, let's talk about why we even do this. So the short answer is to prevent checking or cracking. And we're gonna look at two different kind of scenarios for that, both a sawn board that you're drying and a log you're trying to store to be sawn later. So you've probably heard wood described as a bundle of fibers or a bundle of straws, and those straws allow more moisture to escape from the ends than from the face of the board. And what we're trying to do with the sealing is to seal up the ends so that no moisture or very little moisture escapes from the ends and the whole board dries uniformly throughout its entire length. So what ends up happening if the end of the board is allowed to release more moisture at a higher rate than say up here is the end starts to shrink and you end up with kind of this tapering effect, and what ends up happening is just so much tension building up in there that eventually they just pop back apart and the fibers split, and that's how you end up getting checking. So you can see this board here wasn't sealed and it does have a little bit of cracking down here. So another aspect of the why is just to increase yield. You can still use this board with these cracks in here. You probably just cut this end off and you lose 3 or 4 inches of material on the end of the board. So with a log you have a slightly different scenario going on. When it's left in log form like this, the wood does not dry uniformly. So the wood actually shrinks more in this direction than it does in this direction, so you have an uneven or just differential drying rates, which will allow or which will cause this thing to start cracking just from that drying. So ideally when you're storing a log like this that you're not going to saw right away, you seal up the ends so the ends don't dry out, releasing moisture and then just promoting more cracking. So what we want to do is apply a product to the end grain of the board or of the log to prevent that end grain from shedding moisture. And you can use a lot of different things for that. I prefer a specific product that's actually meant to do this, but you can also use things like latex paint or like tar, for instance. Anything that's going to provide a really good sealant to whatever you apply it to. Now I have used latex paint in the past, and in my experience and in my results, I guess, it doesn't quite work as well as the actual products. Like this is Anchor Seal, which is actually meant for this. Latex paint does work a heck of a lot better than doing nothing. Most anything will work a lot better than doing nothing. But this is kind of an insurance policy, so to speak. And with the Anchor Seal or with other products that are meant to seal green lumber, you happen to have a much better success rate. So in the scenario where you have a log that you're going to saw right away, you have a little bit of a decision to make. You can either seal the end of the log now, or you can wait and just seal up the ends of the boards after you saw them. I personally prefer to just seal up the end of the log. That way when I cut my boards, they're already sealed and ready to go. And then lastly, I'll also mention that I like to seal up the logs as soon as possible. So ideally, these would get sealed up like the same day that they're cut down. So these logs were brought to me by my friend Brandon. He dropped them off about a week ago, and he had cut them down a few days before that. So these ones have been cut down for about 10 days. A little longer than I'd like, but I've been waiting for some good weather to actually make this video. So basically, if you don't seal them right away, you do end up allowing the wood to lose some moisture. It can start to build some stress. You can have some residual checking or residual cracking even after you seal it. So best case scenario, get it sealed immediately. So as I mentioned, I like to use this product, Anchor Seal, and I got a 5-gallon pail of this, and you can get this directly from the manufacturer. When I got it, I've had the same pail since 2013, I think, and it lasts for a very long time. I've sealed every single log and a whole bunch of bowl blanks over the years with just this one 5-gallon pail, and I probably have about a gallon or a little bit under a gallon left. So these things definitely last a while. You can get them directly from UC Coatings on their store, on their website. I think it was $85 shipped when I bought it. It might have gone up now, but that's how much it is, and it lasts a pretty ridiculously long time. So I'm going to pour off some of this and just start slopping this stuff on the ends of the logs. So this stuff goes on kind of white and then it dries clear, which is nice, so you can still see the end grain after the log has been sealed. Not super necessary to be able to see the end grain, but I think it looks cooler. So I apply this stuff pretty heavily and just allow the log to soak in as much as it wants to. Now you can also apply this in the winter if it is below freezing, although I don't really like to do that because I don't find the logs really absorb as much of the material as it normally would if the temperature was above freezing. So this side of the log is kind of going to be awkward to get to, so I'm going to try and roll this thing out of here and see if I can get some more room to work on the other end. There, much better. So as I was cutting and stacking the bigger logs this year, I had a lot of people ask me why I don't bother to seal the ends of my logs. And the answer is, well, these ones are actually sealed. So what happened with these larger logs is the trees were removed about 8 months before I was able to get to them, or before I found them. So they were sitting out in the sun, just exposed to the elements and drying out that way because they were just there for firewood. So after I got every single log back here, I trimmed the ends of them all just to kind of clean them up and just take a look at the end grains to see the kind of pattern there, and then I sealed them up. Now the thing about doing that is damage is already done, so to speak. So those logs had dried from the ends and they had built up a lot of stress in them, so they would have some residual checking even after I trimmed them. Now to actually get rid of all the checking, I'd probably trim back at least a foot or so of the log. I decided to just trim back a little bit just to kind of clean it up and let any residual checking kind of happen, because you never know, it might not check a whole lot, it might still be workable, you might not lose that much material. So I figured I'd play a little bit safer, a little more conservative, and just kind of leave that there. So even though these are sealed and I did trim back a little bit of the ends, there is still a decent amount of checking forming here. Now not a whole lot, they're not super big, and it doesn't appear like they go very far down the face, maybe only a couple inches, but they still have developed some checking, but I knew that was going to happen regardless. So coming back over here, the anchor seal has dried, and you can see it dries pretty clear, so you can still see what's going on in the ends of the logs. Now that's not super important all the time, but in a case like this where I have some spalting that I might want to saw the log a little differently to incorporate this in different ways, or being able to see where the pith is, for instance, being able to see the ends of the logs just makes sawing a little bit easier when it comes time for that. So that about does it for this one. Let me know if you have topic suggestions for future Ask Matts, and check out some of the previous Ask Matts. I'll leave a link to that in all the usual places. So thank you as always for watching. I greatly appreciate it. If you have any questions or comments about sealing logs, anything on the sawmill or back in the shop, please feel free to leave me a comment. As always, I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have. For some reason, I'm really winded. And until next time, happy woodworking.